Hi guys, welcome to my channel. This is really awkward talking to a camera when I'm used to being able to actually see people, so if I make mistakes or I'm really awkward, firstly I'm very sorry about that. Secondly, don't actually know how to edit videos or things like that, I'm sorry. So you're going to have to make do with these written notes rather than actually giving you kind of any graphics or anything that would have actually looked good. You're going to have to deal with this. This is the best map I could do, and the rest of it is just my writing. Hopefully you can read it. I've written it, not Mr. Towers, so my handwriting's better. Okay, so my first video, as you can see here, is about the end of World War I and the abdication of the Kaiser. This is quite a confusing topic. You don't need to know a lot about it, but I'm going to try and explain it anyway, and I'm going to try and put it in the context of the First World War, so that when we come to talking about what's going on in Germany in the early 1919 and things like that, that will hopefully make more sense. I have drawn a little rubbish map on there, but that is mostly so that I can point out a couple of things to you about where some places are. Hopefully that will help you understand some of what's going on. So, in 1917, this is where we're going to start. Obviously, the First World War begins in 1914, but in 1917, a stalemate has occurred. So, stalemate is basically where neither side is winning, neither side's making progress, that kind of thing. So, kind of stuck in these trenches, which you'll probably remember from the medicine topic. And also, Germany is fighting a war on two fronts, which is where, if I show you on my little map, you see I've labelled the Western Front. For those of you who go to my school, that is the medicine bit that we looked at. We looked at medicine in that section of the trench warfare. There's also an Eastern Front over here, which is where Germany is fighting against Russia. Now this is where my map is slightly inaccurate, because Poland is actually in the middle here and some stuff, but Germany is basically fighting Russia on this side. Okay, now you don't really need to know that for the Germany exam, but it'll help you understand some of the things I'm going to tell you in a sec. In April 1917, the USA joins the war. They're led by a man called Woodrow Wilson. At the moment, he is the president. His name comes up a couple of times, like when we talk about the Treaty of Versailles, but also when we look at what happens with the abdication of the Kaiser later. Then, in October 1917, Russia experiences its second revolution of 1917. I haven't written the first one on there, that's the February one. That's where they kick the Tsar out of power and they set up the provisional government. The October 1917 one is where a group called the Bolsheviks, led by Lenin, take over the Russian government. And they basically take control, kick out the provisional government that was kind of vaguely democratic, and they set up a communist government there. That new communist government later becomes known as Russia later becomes known as the Soviet Union, or USSR, which I might refer to a couple of times as well. Then on the 3rd of March 1918, the USSR, Russia, decide to sign a treaty called the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, which basically takes Russia out of the First World War. So they sign this treaty with Germany, because Russia's been doing terribly in the First World War. They're not very good, they're not well funded, they're not well organised. So this means that where Germany had been fighting on two fronts, on the Western Front and the Eastern Front, they now are not fighting Russia on the Eastern Front. They're only fighting on one side, which is good for Germany because it means they don't need to split their army anymore. They can send more resources, more troops to fight against France and Britain, who are stronger, better organised than Russia was anyway. So they need more help against them. Then on the 21st of March 1918, Germany decide to launch their spring offensive. It's their kind of big push to try and take back land in France. It's fairly successful, actually, to begin with, but by the time we get to early autumn 1918, the German army has been pushed back on the Western Front. So they've been kind of pushed back into Germany, kind of back out of France, and they're now struggling. At this point, it starts to become obvious that Germany is most likely not going to win the war. That's not only because Germany's been pushed back, but also Britain which is all the way up here, it's kind of on the edge, have been blockading Germany. So what that means is the British Navy have been stopping ships and supplies getting into Germany, which means that Germany's sort of running low on food and things like that. The people in Germany are starting to get really hungry. There's a lot of unrest. A lot of people are starting to think, when is this war going to end? We don't seem to be doing very well. So Germany's losing for a couple of reasons: the British blockade, and also they're being pushed back. Then, early October, a new German government is formed, and it's led by a man called Prince Max of Baden, which might sometimes be written as Prince Max von Baden and that kind of thing. Prince Max, once he's kind of set up this new government, the Kaiser is still officially in charge, but he's decided he's going to set up this new government. Now, bear with me while I just check on my notes. So when he sets up this new government, it basically seeks to take some of the power away from the Kaiser and the military kind of personnel who are running Germany at this time, and it looks to give this power to the Reichstag, which is basically like the German equivalent of Parliament. So Prince Max has set this up, and he approaches Wilson, the American president, and says, can we begin peace talks? Germany is really struggling. We don't really want to continue this war. Could we have peace? And Wilson wants peace. He wants to find peace. He's quite an enlightened guy. He's not really that excited by the First World War. And he basically says, yeah, I'll discuss peace terms with you once you've got rid of the Kaiser and once the military kind of advisors and things are out of power. If you can actually make sure the Kaiser is not in charge anymore, then I'll discuss peace terms with you. So Prince Max is like, okay, so we need to have these peace talks, but the German government won't be able to do that until we get rid of the Kaiser. Then at the end of October, this is where things start to really kick off at home in Germany. There's an area I've marked on here called Kiel. It's right below Denmark, which is this weird little bit here that I tried to draw. So Kiel is right at the top here. Now, I said earlier that Britain had been blockading Germany. Kiel is a place where the German Navy was situated, and it was a key area, like strategy-wise, for the Germans to fight back against the British Navy to try and stop the blockade continuing. And at the start, or end of October, at the end of October, they are given orders to go to sea and to fight the British Navy. And the sailors mutiny. That means they go against their orders. They disobey what they've been told to do. And they refuse to do it because they think it's a foolish attack, and they also think it will put in danger the peace talks that are starting to develop in Europe and with America at this time. So they don't want to put those in danger. From there, it just goes on, and more parts of the army refuse to put down riots in Germany. They start to see this kind of thing. And eventually, on the 9th of November, Kaiser Wilhelm II abdicates. And at this point, Germany decides that they are now going to be a republic. That means they are not led by a monarch or a king or Kaiser or something like that. They are now going to be ruled by a democratically elected government. Then, on the 11th of November, the new Chancellor Ebert accepts the armistice, which is proposed by Wilson at the end of those peace talks. It's worth pointing out at this stage, so the 11th of November, when we have Remembrance Day, that armistice, initially, when Ebert accepts it, there is a thought or an assumption that Germany will get to have their say when discussing what the treaty that they come to, or what the kind of peace talks will actually look like in the end. But that's for another video. So hopefully this kind of helps you understand some of what's going on in Germany at this time, and how the Kaiser gets kicked out of power. Basically, Germany, by the end of the First World War, is an absolute mess. There are riots everywhere, there are people protesting, and there's a new government that's just taken charge, which I'll explain in the next video, but they're quite weak. So, I'll see you next video. Bye!